this schedule really shapes up for a playoff run with a 12-team playoff.
Areas that, you need to get from experience, which is just, hey, I need to make quicker decisions.
How do you define success for this team?
National championship.
What's going on, y'all? I'm Bud Elliott. This is my summer school series on the Cover 3 podcast. Today, we are talking Vandy. I head to Vandy 247. Who do I see? Robbie Weinstein joining us yet again. Robbie, welcome back to the show, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bud. We were talking before this broadcast started that we do this every year, and normally it's talking about one of the worst teams in the Power Four, if not the country, and it's a lot different all of a sudden.
I mean, best year by far, in over a decade for them. Like, really exciting. Some major teams taken down, including that awesome upset over Alabama. What's the vibe there right now?
They're very confident. I mean, Diego Pavia, regardless of whether it's rational or irrational confidence, he's gonna, be pushing the idea that they want to compete to make the college football playoff. They want to win 8+ games. In my opinion, I think that this is going to be a longer build to that than what they hope. But of course, I understand when you beat a team like Alabama and close the season with a good win over a good Georgia Tech team. I get why they're confident.
So Pavia was one of the recipients of the ruling. I think he deserved to win it, but the junior college ruling that allowed players to get that extra year. He was awesome last year. Is there anything that the staff has said or that you would like to see out of him, like improvement-wise this season? And if so, where?
I think he got as much out of himself really as I think he could have. What they do want to do is he was banged up for most of last season. He is small, he's listed at 6 foot. He's probably 5'9", 5'9.5". That's based off of standing next to him a number of times. Great football player, but the SEC is the biggest, strongest athletes in the conference in college football. And Vandy had a really pretty bad O-line last season. So he got banged up. And I think what they want to see him just take fewer hits. And maybe that means being smarter with whether that's getting the ball out quicker or just maybe more so being smarter when he runs the ball, not to take unnecessary hits. That would be the big thing. Other than that, his completion percentage wasn't great, but a lot of that was because wide receivers were struggling to get open downfield. He didn't make a lot of errant throws, and I think he had very few interceptions, so he really wasn't turning the ball over. I think more so they need to get a little better around him, and they poured in quite a bit of resources into the offensive line as a result.
I was going to ask you about that. Are we expecting real improvement from that offensive line this year?
Yeah, actually, yes. And I'm somebody who's always kind of a skeptic about that because it feels like Vandy reworks its O-line every year and it never really works out. But what I saw in the spring was significant improvement. I think Jordan White from Liberty, who our guys rated as a 4-star transfer, and he picked Vandy over Michigan, Miami, Colorado. I think maybe South Carolina was the 4th team. He looks good. Last year they were playing a guy who's 340 pounds at center, and he couldn't really move. This guy, Jordan White, can actually get to the second level, block some linebackers, and it's going to open more holes in the run game. They lost Gunnar Hansen, who was the starter at essentially left tackle. They call it quick tackle. They lost him to FSU, but he didn't really have a great season or honestly a great career at Vandy. And the guy who came in, Isaiah Glass, it's spelled Isaiah, but I guess pronounced Isaiah. He's from Oklahoma State, and I thought he looked better actually during spring practice. So they've still got a lot to prove, I think, but they look better at left tackle. They look a lot better at center. And then Bryce Henderson, the South Dakota State transfer, is going to be at right tackle, strong tackle, and he's a really good run blocker. So I guess there's some question as to whether they can help him out enough in pass pro, because I think that's a weakness. But they do look, they're going to be at the bottom of the SEC or toward the bottom in terms of the O-line, but not by a mile like they have been in the past.
They return their top pass catcher at receiver, and then obviously Stowers is back at tight end, who I've seen in multiple mock drafts as the top tight end in the country, at least among the draft eligible ones, which is awesome for Vanderbilt. You would think, given kind of the complexities of that position, that's kind of a spot you could sell to smarter kids who would be interested in Vanderbilt, especially with the proof of concept there. Who potentially could be the number 3 target for this team, assuming those 2 guys are the first?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's going to be, my guess would be Trent Hudson, who he was most recently at Mississippi State, didn't really play much last year. What I heard was that there was some sort of eligibility issue related to that, and he was at New Mexico State the year before that. So He was one of New Mexico State's best wide receivers, along with Jonathan Brady, who ended up at Cal Berkeley and is in the portal now as we speak on May 1st. And he's kind of a big physical wideout. I think he had 10 touchdowns in his last season at New Mexico State. And they're very confident in him. It's hard for me to say because he didn't enroll yet. He'll be here in June. And so I didn't see him in the spring. And sometimes, a lot of the staff and players are from New Mexico State, and they get really optimistic and excited about the guys who they played with or coached over there. So it could be him. Then Bryson Coleman is another guy. He's going to be the backup behind Eli Stowers, but he could play a lot, especially in obvious passing situations, because the dude is absolutely electric. I mean, he was a former 4-star recruit, and at 6'5", he can really, really run. The question is, how often is he going to be on the field, because he can't really block much, especially for a tight end. But, Vandy could not cover him in spring practice, and that was even some of their better players like Brandon Fontenette, who is a very good cover linebacker or safety hybrid.
That'd be pretty interesting to see more multiple tight end formations from them. And like just Vandy's offense is legitimately good. It also is, I think, like a special prep offense to one where you if you don't actually take it seriously on Monday and Tuesday when they're going over it in scout, it's probably too late. And I wonder, I think this offense, just from listening to you, it sounds like talent-wise, they're better than they were last year.
I think they are. They just didn't lose. Both offense and defense, they didn't lose a lot of guys. And so, in my opinion, given that they were a 6-win regular season team, I think you need to up the overall talent level to all of a sudden make the jump to 8 or 9 wins in the SEC. But I also think that means they've got a very high floor, really on both sides of the ball. And obviously, what you're getting from the quarterback. That's a big deal. So they're not going to be. Their next step would be to become more of a big play offense. They're not very explosive at all, and that's not really what they're trying to do because they want to shorten games in order to introduce more variance. But they're definitely going to be competent and sort of annoying to deal with again.
And I think that suggests, more teams, and I think a lot of teams in the back half of the schedule for sure took Vandy serious last year. Watching them beat the Hokies to start the year was pretty obvious that people didn't take note. And then, of course, if you weren't paying attention by then, Bama was a pretty good time, to do so. But I mean, to disagree if you do, but with more experience coming back and a couple of new pieces, that should be able to offset more teams be like, hey, Vandy ain't old Vandy. We actually have to prep and play for these guys. It seems like they should be able to hold serve. I'm excited to watch this.
Yeah, I think that matters for sure. I agree with you. I'm not too terribly worried for them about that aspect. I think that it is good to. It's not like the guys that they're bringing back aren't any good.
Right. Yeah.
I would say toward the end of last season, the other issue is I think they've gone some lengths to fix this. Is they just got beat up at the line of scrimmage. Their run defense really collapsed late in the season. And I think they had pretty good depth on the defensive line, but they had a guy tear his ACL against Auburn and other players who were pretty banged up and were still able to play, but not completely effective. And so they went and added, they've got, I want to say 3 defensive tackles just in the spring portal window. And so they're going to roll 7 deep at defensive tackle. And none of them are going to be draft picks probably, but they're all capable of playing 15 snaps a game or more. And I think that's what they're trying to do. That's their idea is let's roll through fresh bodies who are all capable of being on the field with these other teams and hope that you can, not wear down late in the game basically and be able to contain some of these rushing offenses a little bit better.
All right, let's hit a break. On the flip side, I want to continue this conversation about the defense.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast. This is our summer school series, talking a little Vandy with Robbie Weinstein. All right, so you mentioned all the D tackles coming in, more fresh bodies, which I think makes a ton of sense. Especially given how Vandy wants to shorten games with its offense. You should be able to keep guys fresh the entire time. Is there a unit that sticks out to you on this defense as the potential to be the most improved over last year?
Yeah, corners for sure. So last season, I thought the corners were going to be a disaster because they had really struggled in that area for the 2 years before, and then they brought in 3 transfers who were all expected to play significant roles, and 2 of them were ruled out for the season before it ever began. So Marlon Jones Jr. from Eastern Washington, who was one of the top FCS corners 2 years ago, he actually was diagnosed with cancer, and he has recovered and since joined the team. He looked solid in the spring, I would say. And Mark Davis Jr., who was from Southern Illinois, originally started his career at Buffalo. He was coming off an Achilles injury and re-injured it, and so he missed the season too. Those guys are both back. Martell Height, who was a true sophomore last year, really improved. He played a lot as a true freshman, but he wasn't very good, I wouldn't say. And he actually looked the part of a respectable number 1 corner last season. And so they're going to have 4, 5, 6 potentially playable corners. And again, I do think Height probably will get drafted at some point, and maybe Jordan Matthews, who transferred in from Tennessee. But for the most part, these are they've got a lot of guys who maybe if they play really well could be late day 3 draft picks or priority undrafted free agents. I mean, I think Vandy's probably not at the point as a program where they're going to win out for top talent in the transfer portal or high school recruiting, most likely. So they're basically trying to bring in a lot of very capable players and have a bunch of good guys, and understanding that they're not going to have much star power.
But that makes a lot of sense, and obviously the improved secondary there. You do face quite a few teams who can chuck it around, or at least we think that. I assume Alabama could chuck it around with that receiving core. Yeah. LSU we know can. Texas, it probably a safe bet. Auburn, I guess it's wait and see because Jackson Arnold was legitimately terrible last year, but their receiving core is pretty nice. So. And yet you also face some teams that probably can't throw it all that effectively. Like Kentucky is, I don't know, Tech. We will see. So that'll be interesting. Is there a spot on this defense that worries you?
I think safety, which they lost both their starting safeties from last season, in CJ Taylor and Dericky Wright. Both of them, again, good college players. None of them, as we sit here a few days after the draft, neither of them have actually signed with NFL teams yet. So, I mean, they weren't these weren't all SEC guys, but they had played like a couple thousand snaps over the course of their career. They were both 4th year or 5th year seniors. And I just think that you saw Vandy not give up a lot of big plays last season because these guys were vets who knew what they were doing and their pattern recognition was really good. And so there's always a risk when you're bringing in new guys who are maybe more talented, but a lot younger. That are they going to know what they're doing basically, and are they going to be able to diagnose what's going on in front of them? So CJ Hurd, who's a transfer from FAU and started there as a true freshman last year, I want to say led the team in tackles, or at least was in the top 3. He will start at one spot, and then they've got a battle going on at the other, probably between Marlon Sewell, who's a 5th year senior and has been a backup essentially over the last few years, and Dante Carter, who's a true sophomore, was a top 150 or so high school recruit. He's a true sophomore now. So they're a little bit green at safety. And I don't know if that's a position where you want to be inexperienced at. At the same time, these guys are talented. So, and they didn't give up a ton of big plays in the spring. It's difficult for me to say exactly how that's going to go, but I would expect them probably to take a step back at that position. And there's definitely a lot of uncertainty.
Is there a guy who, if he plays to his ceiling for this team, either side of the ball, could drastically change the fortunes of what Vanderbilt can be?
I'd take Keanu Coote probably because he's coming in from Alabama as an edge rusher, and Vandy does not have star players at premium positions. We've talked about this a lot, and their pass rush has been toward the bottom of the SEC for as long as I can remember. This guy is a potential dude if he finally breaks out. He was I want to say top 100 recruit out of Florida who went to Alabama and spent a couple of years there. And I thought he was solid in the spring. Right now, I honestly wouldn't pick him to start, but you never know if things just all of a sudden end up clicking because he's totally shredded and he moves well. So the ability is there. The talent is for sure there. And they've got, again, a bunch of solid players on the edge, but no pass rusher, no individual who demands extra help or who really is going to scare, especially an SEC opponent. And so if he can become that, I think that changes a lot.
How would you define success for Vanderbilt this year?
Honestly, I think it's just getting back to another bowl game. I think the big thing for them is not to drop back down to being a losing team again, and to make sure that you consolidate the progress that you made the year before and establish yourself as a competent program who, can be a legitimate option for good Power 4 transfers. I don't think it matters that much. It would be great if they could win 8 games or something like that. I wouldn't pick that. And to be honest, I think it's a lot more important. The most important difference in terms of importance from win to win is that going from number 5 to number 6. I think that is like changing the perception nationally of the program, which has been like one of the worst programs in college football for decades. I think that's of utmost importance. And so, I'm sure they would be unhappy if they go 6-6, lose the bowl game, and go 6-7. But to me, I just think you got to get back to the postseason. That is really paramount.
I think about this Vanderbilt team last year. They went 6-6 in the regular season and beat Georgia Tech in the bowl game for win 7. They did that losing to Georgia State. Like, if you had told me preseason, hey, Bud, they're going to lose to Georgia State and still make a bowl. Like, okay, Robbie, we're going to do some drug testing.
Yeah, right.
And they pulled it off. I mean, this year the non-con it's manageable. I feel like now playing in Lane Stadium is never easy for anybody, but they did beat Virginia Tech last year, and I don't think Tech's better this year.
I'll be curious to see the line on that game. I'd pick Vandy right now. Honestly, I think Tech would probably be a slight favorite, but I mean, I'm gonna probably roll with the better quarterback.
I think so too. I mean, Charleston Southern, Georgia State, and then Utah State. I mean, like that. That's a real chance to go 4-0 in the non-con. And then you figure, like, will Kentucky have its act together? How good is Missouri? Like, I don't know. There's a lot more
possible. Like, when you look at the schedule, there's a lot more wins that you say maybe they could win that. It's at least possible compared to going into the season a year ago. We didn't think there were a lot of ones that they really had much of a shot at. I'd say, honestly, looking at it, of course, Texas, they're not going to win that. There's no chance. But hey, other than that, what if South Carolina lost a lot from that defensive line? Tennessee, are they really going to be that good with everything that has happened there? I wouldn't completely write off Vandy in any game this season other than Texas.
I also love how this sets up home road, right? Like, if your goal is to win 11, then this is a terrible home road split.
Right.
If your goal is to win 6 or 7,
it's fine. Yeah.
It's very nice. I mean, you get Kentucky, Missouri, Auburn, and LSU come to town. Can you split those and take care of business in the non-con? You're bowling. Like, that's pretty nice. So, man, I really enjoyed this.
I agree. The strength of schedule on paper is going to be ranked very high, but I agree for what they want to do. I mean, they've come close to beating Mizzou twice out of the last 3 tries, and they have beaten Kentucky twice out of the last 3 tries. And then the Auburn Diego Pavia thing, the curse of Pavia continues to loom large over that game. So I don't think they're going to win all of those, but to your point, you don't need to. If getting back to a bowl game is a success, then you win even one SEC road game, or you win at Virginia Tech, and all of a sudden you're kind of sitting pretty. It's just not that high of a bar, and there's not that many glaring weaknesses on their team that you look at and you're just like, man, they aren't going to have a shot against someone like Tennessee or whoever, because there's not as many weak links as in the past. Alabama, of course, probably would approach Texas in terms of not likely to win, but they did it last year, so who knows? I guess
it could happen for sure. Robbie, really enjoyed this. We're checking out all your awesome coverage there at Vandy 247, and appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.